Hi, I'm Rachel Goodwin and I'm a channel and healer who loves to teach and empower others. My work is about teaching you how to make a strong and powerful connection with your divinity, your divine spark, soul, higher self, whatever you want to call it, and then bringing that divine power right smack centre into the middle of your life so that it mixes and integrates with your everyday life and your everyday self. To me, this is ascension as it creates an overall rising of vibration and is where my path and yours has always been leading.
Auheia valeana oe e kahaliko puhakukui kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu kumamoninei pikoi kahimanaho I kahapili koholuaia Ea ke kaula lo pihana e kohopu kapaliliai Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puakukui
Welcome everyone to the first podcast of Sacred You. So what is a sacred you? Well, it probably means different things to different people. For me, sacred you, it's talking about, well, I believe we all have a divine spark. And that is a piece of the divine. Some people will call it their higher self or their soul. But I think that part of us kind of, well, I suppose it has the best of us in there. It has the part of us that feels joy and knows how to love in any circumstance. I think it's really unlimited, this part of ourselves. It has access to the healing and the wisdom that we need in every single situation. I don't have an idea of needing to kind of transcend or ascend away from our earthly, daily, lower self lives. My vision is connecting to that higher part of ourselves and then bringing it down into all our struggles and our troubles and our worries and our strifes and our anxieties. To me, that's the sacred life. It's bringing it right into the middle, right into the centre of the circle, into the nitty-gritty of it all. And then my vision is that life becomes something else. And something quite fun and enjoyable, but not something sort of floating around on a cloud. Something that's quite warm and messy and mixed up with other people. And life is a bit messy, isn't it? Don't you think? It's like life is a bit messy. So I'm imagining that perhaps you're someone who, you're going along and maybe you have a sense of there's something else, there's something other, there's more. When I was a kid, I always had a feeling of having come from a place that was, I don't know. It's really hard to put words on these things, but I suppose I had a sense of highness about it. And highness, I don't mean that in a sort of authoritative way, but I knew that I was supposed to be trying to get that in my life and that it should be there. And I was looking around and I couldn't find it. I couldn't for the life of me find it. And wow, that was so difficult. And then when I got back kind of on my spiritual path, then I realised, I was a clever kid. I was all wise, We're very wise as children. Often we don't listen to ourselves. But I knew what I was talking about. That sense of expansiveness, of more, of highness, something very, we can have that in our lives. But there's kind of stuff we have to do, because where we're at in our society right now, energetically, culturally, and also with the earth grid, it's not as high as it needs to be for us to access these things. So that means we have to do a certain amount of work to get from where we are to where we want to be. And that is what I've been doing for the last 22 years. That is what I have been working on. And that is kind of my question to my spiritual teachers and guides, is how do I do that? How do I get there? And so that's what this podcast is about. It's about sacred you, because I believe you can get there as well. I don't think it has to be necessarily hard or complicated. Sometimes it will be hard, but the thing that I found is what's important is you keep going, even if sometimes that's very slowly, because sometimes we can only go at a snail's pace, because that is where we are, and that's fine. But as long as we keep going, of course, sometimes you need to stop for a while. Don't we all? Don't we all need a bit of a rest and a break? But then keep going after that. But I'd like you to just imagine for a minute, what would it look like if you could kind of be that integrated person, someone who's integrated their higher self into their lives, or whatever way you visualize that sacred you as looking. What would it look like? What would it look like in your life? What would that daily life look like? How would you feel? What would be different? How would your life look different? How would you look different? How would you be relating to the people around you, and how would they be relating to you? Would you speak in the same way, or would something have changed there as well? Just let your imagination run free. Don't have to limit it, and it doesn't have to be something you believe in even. Just if it were going to be like that, if you were going to be a person who is like fully enlightened or fully ascended, what would sacred you look like? Get a really clear picture or a feeling or a thought in your head. And maybe you just want to note that down. And this is my goal for this podcast, is that in as many different ways as we can discover together, we'll be looking into all of these things and sharing wisdom, my wisdom, your wisdom, other people's wisdom, and really becoming a resource for each other. Because, I think this is what we've come here to do. Those of us that are interested in this at this time, there's a reason for that. And you know what? There's actually a lot of us. We are becoming quite a powerful force energetically, and we're becoming change makers in the world. Yeah, and I see a destiny and a purpose for that. So let's see where this can go and where it's going to take us. So thank you for listening. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But it feels good. It feels really good to me, this process, and I'm really happy to be here. And I look forward to discovering all of this together with you. Today I wanted to give you a little bit of background as to why I'm making this podcast. And so I wanted to where to start. I wanted to tell you a bit about my journey. I guess my spiritual journey started nearly 22 years ago now, when my mum died. And I was 26 and had just finished 3 years of training as a mental health nurse. And my mum was ill, I think the last year of my training. She had cervical cancer. And it was actually my mum dying that really, it kind of shocked me onto my spiritual journey. It kind of blew me out of my life, blew me out of the place where I was, and sort of I ended up a completely different place. And that was because it was just such a huge loss for me to lose my mum at that age, and we were quite close. And in that, I think there's something about when the first person who you love, who you're close to, when they die, there's something about that is just so profoundly shocking. Quite often people find that it's that first time, because you can't imagine. I mean, that you're going to be really sad when someone you love dies, but you can't. It's a bit like having your first child, or these big life things. You can't know what it feels like until it happens. And when my mum died, such a big shock that energetically it kind of blew my energy bodies apart, if you like. I've heard someone describe it as an initiation when we go through these things, and that's also something that rings true for me, because I became aware of things that I had been able to dismiss before. And just to make that a little bit clearer, so it can make a bit more sense for you, what I mean is that I'd always been aware of spirit. I'd always felt a lot of things, had sort of, psychic experiences, but I'd never actually taken any notice of them. I was brought up to be an atheist, really, in quite a cynical atmosphere, and I didn't actually believe any of this stuff. But when my mum died, I could quite clearly feel her presence around me. It was as if she was there, but there was not a person there, but I could still feel her energy around me, and I couldn't ignore it because I missed her so much, and I couldn't dismiss that, because she mattered too much to me. And she also had a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and I was looking at it. It was a book, I've still got it now, but she would underline things and write things in it. She got obviously she was ill for a couple of years before she died, but and in that time she was, getting quite interested in spiritual things. I think she generally was as a person in her life, but she'd lost her faith. She was a Catholic, my mum, but she lost her faith when her first husband died. And the last 2 years, when she was ill, quite naturally, I think she started getting interested in spiritual things. So anyway, I picked up this book, and there was a chapter in there about kind of saying prayers and practices for someone who died, and to help them kind of move through the different planes of existence. And, I felt really gripped by a need to do that. So I did. I read out these prayers, and I really felt something happening. It was really amazing. I can remember I was sitting on the bed in my brother's house, which is where my mum had been living just before she died, and I read out these practices, and I could feel something was happening. I could sort of feel these different planes, and it was just incredible. It was such an opening experience for me, and I knew that it was helping doing these things, and things were actually happening. But I just kept developing spiritually from that moment on. Up until that point, I was such a closed book. I wasn't interested in anything spiritual at all. Thought it was just, I saw spiritualism as like just, I don't know, load of nutters really. Old ladies with pink rinses in their hair, and they were just denying reality. People were just denying. I thought religion was just denying reality, and it was very cynical, very left-brained about it. But that this point in my life with my mum, just like I said, it just blew me out of the water. It just changed everything, and I started to feel energetically things going on around me that I stopped denying to myself. I started to take notice of them, and then just step by step, step by step I learned healing. I started reading books, everything I could get my hands on. And it has just never stopped in 22 years. It has never stopped from that moment. And, the place where I was then and the place where I am now are really, really worlds apart. But, I still have that person inside me that I was then. And, hopefully I've done a lot of healing around a lot of things. But, I still have that side of me that's quite skeptical and wants to know proof. And I just love learning about things. I could endlessly go on courses and read books, and I have to kind of stop myself and go, no, right, I need to do some work now, because otherwise I would just be like an endless student. I have this massive thirst for learning. And what I want to do with this podcast is just, I never had a chance to tell my mum all this stuff that I've been doing, and it's just so interesting. And I know if you're listening to this, it's because you're interested in all of these things as well. Shamanism and angels and healing and tarot cards and crystals, and there's just so much stuff out there. It's just amazing. When I was a kid, there was just nothing. There was nothing. The world was dark and glum, and now all these years later, there's just there's just so much stuff. You have to turn away from it in the end, otherwise you just don't have any time to get anything done. It's just amazing how many healing systems there are and things like that. But one of my passions has become how do we live a spiritual life in the world we live in? I'm a really busy person. I've got 2 kids. Over the last 20 years, the time for my spiritual practices has been quite small. So I've had to try and make my life part of that spiritual practice. So, rather than something where I have to go away and shut myself in a quiet room for 2 hours or an hour a day, my practices have become things that either take 2 minutes or they're part of everything else that I'm doing, because I've just never had the time, or the energy, or the resources, or the ability to sort of make some massive space in my life to be spiritual. So and I've learned loads and loads of stuff. I mean, I've learned to channel, and I tune into different energies, and so these are the things I want to be doing on this show. I don't want to talk about it too much, just want to get on with it, really. And sort of, in that sharing it with you, I want to give you, we'll have a different thing to talk about each time, and I'll, give some sort of background to it so that it makes some sense. And then I also want to give a practical thing to do, but also a practice, so that you can experience things for yourself. Because what's the point reading about things if you can't actually use them? I was a nurse. I'm a really pragmatic, practical person, and it's great knowing about things, but what I'm always asking is well, what's the point, and what can you do with that? How does that make my life better? So that's a bit about the background, about why I'm doing this podcast. And then that bit, that's my thinking, is behind all of this for me, it's a chance for me to tell my mum. Because it was because of her that my spiritual journey started. I don't know if it would have happened another way. I guess, life is always bringing you the things that you need, but it had to, it had to be something that was just this, it had to be something that was that dramatic, I think. It's sort of sad, but I had a big wall of cynicism around me, and everyday stuff wouldn't have broken through it, and and then I haven't got to tell my mum about it all. It's kind of because of her that this has happened, and she would have actually been really interested in all these things that I'm going to be sharing on the podcast, and but she wouldn't have known that much about it either. But she would have loved to hear me tell her about it. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was this. It's quite common now in the new age, is to sort of talk about tuning into yourself, and being able to feel inside yourself, and kind of knowing who you are, and maybe tuning into your heart's desires, or connecting to your soul. But it's something about this inner journey. And that's where I wanted to take you today. So maybe before I start on that, if we just have a few moments to just tune into ourselves and feel into our body, because this work is very much like feeling into your physical self and being present in your physical body. So maybe just take some deep breaths. And bring your awareness into your physical body. And just noticing how you're feeling at the moment. Are you feeling hot or cold, uncomfortable, nice and cozy? A bit stressed or a bit tired or happy or... Yeah, just notice what's there. Just let it be there. And I'm going to call in Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is a person who I like to work with a lot when it comes to this kind of things, because this is really her thing. She's really great at helping us connect to this part of ourselves. And when we call in different gods or goddesses or ascended masters or angels, if we call in like the being, if you like, that is good at the thing that we're doing, they act as a bridge for us. Their energy, just calling them in, because when we call them in, energetically they're present with us, and that in itself does something huge. It's a very simple thing to do. You don't have to have any special powers to do it. You just have to do it. That's it. So I'm just going to call in Mary Magdalene. And you can hold that intent in your mind as well, that Mary Magdalene enters into your energy field. So just do that now. So just ask Mary Magdalene to come into your energy field. Call on her, whatever way you want to. You might start to feel some shifts and changes. And just want you to sit there with that feeling. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Mary Magdalene. So I work with some guides and spiritual teachers, and one of them is Sarah, who is the daughter of Mary Magdalene and Jesus. So I see Mary Magdalene as Sarah's mother. But I see her very much as the divine feminine energy. This is Mary Magdalene. And as a person who really knew how to connect to her soul and her divinity, her inner self, her higher self. But with all of her body, I see her living her life in a divine way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, she was able to access her humanity, those needs and desires inside her that we all have. But she was able to connect to them in an integrated way, where she could bring her divinity to them. And so she can help us do that now. And just take your attention down to your heart center. And I often see Mary Magdalene's energy as pink. Maybe also that beautiful sort of deep red colour, sort of burgundy, a bit like red wine. Just breathe deep down into your heart center. Bring in an energy of allowing, things being okay. You know, often we're so busy restricting ourselves and limiting ourselves, but we don't know we're doing it because we've learnt all these things over a lifetime from our families and our culture. So try and let go of any feeling of restrictions or limitations. And imagine an energy of allowing, freeness. And the energy of Mary Magdalene is supporting you in this. And just breathe in and out of your heart center. Breathe in and out of your heart center. And a really simple exercise I like to do is to imagine a cross within a circle. And imagine that cross within a circle is around your heart. And then energetically, you're travelling from the outside of that circle all the way into the centre of the circle. Feel yourself going in deeper and deeper into the centre of that circle. Further and further in, deeper and deeper. And then when you get into the centre of that circle, just sort of nestle yourself down there, you know, a bit like a cat. I don't know if you've seen a cat when they, are getting ready to sort of have a bit of a sleep. They turn round a few times and they sort of dig in and they sort of nestle themselves, get themselves like proper cosy right down into the middle. Do that, the centre of your circle. And then just let yourself rest there. And I want you to ask from this place at the centre of the circle, if there's anything you need to know right now, anything about your life, if there's anything that maybe you'd like to do, or there's something that you'd be happy doing, something that will bring you joy, or something that's part of your personality actually that's maybe not getting expressed. And so, it could be a really lovely thing if you could start doing that thing again. Maybe there's something about yourself that you've forgotten, a side of yourself that you've forgotten. So this is about reconnecting to who we are as much as we can. To just have that lovely sense of fullness in your heart from being in this place. Feel how supported you are. And just actually, you don't have to do anything. Just breathe in and out. Just let yourself rest here. And just ask from this place, from the centre, if there's anything that needs to come to you right now that will help you the most. And then just let yourself go quiet inside yourself and just see what comes up. Just give yourself a moment. And it might come up as something, as an idea. It might come up as some words, or it might come up as a colour or an energy, just some little tiny thing for you to catch hold of. But whatever it is that's coming up for you, I want you to ask it some questions. Just ask it, okay, so how do you feel to me? Just notice how it feels. Maybe it feels light or happy or serious or emotional. And just ask this thing, this little thing, perhaps, or maybe a big thing that you've caught hold of. What does it want you to do? What does it want you to do? And then ask it, how? How does it want you to do that thing? Whatever it is. How can I do that? And maybe you just want to write some of these things down just so you don't forget. Just give you a few moments to ask any more questions as well that maybe you need to take a moment to ask. And maybe get yourself a pen, paper, tap it into your phone or whatever. Just allow yourself a moment of thanks for whatever it is that you got. And to Mary Magdalene for her support. And then just let that image of the cross within the circle go. Just let it go. Maybe sit yourself up a bit, or just going to move my chair about. I've got a really creaky chair, so if you can hear any creaks and things going on, that's my chair, my creaky chair. Yeah, and so, this is a really simple thing to do. It's a really simple thing to do, but many of us have been taught, and my mum was especially one of these people, to, kind of do the things you're supposed to do and do your duty and be a good person. And, we can really get lost in all of that. We can really forget to even try and find ourselves in this long list, because there's quite a long list laid on us, whether it's consciously or unconsciously by our society that we live in. And life just becomes, an endless tick list of to-dos and ought-tos. And this is a really, really simple way. So I hope that you were able to find something in that exercise and practice it. And I love spiritual practices, and I love this idea of spiritual practices because it gives the sense that, it's a practice. So that means you don't have to be able to do it straight away. You don't have to be perfect the first time. It's there for you to keep practicing. And of course, whatever we practice, we get better at. It's life, isn't it? Well, hopefully. I was just thinking, I had to learn Danish the last few years. And I don't practice as much as I should, but sometimes it felt like as much as I practiced, I didn't really get anywhere. But that's not true. That's not true. It's just some things are harder to learn than others. But I have really learned that if you just keep putting the work in, you'll get somewhere. Even if it is very slowly sometimes, like with Danish. But I have to say with the spiritual practices, do see results. Spiritual practices are great. So let me just tune in for a moment just to see if there's anything else that we need to do for today. I just wanted to say that practice of tuning into the heart and calling in Mary Magdalene, and the cross within the circle, it's a really good thing to do at different times in the day. So, I mean, you could do it in the morning when you got up. You could do it any point where you've got a spare moment and you feel a bit, I don't know what to do. Then perhaps you can remember to do it then. I wouldn't sit and do it in traffic necessarily because you might lose your concentration. Wouldn't do that one when I'm driving because it's a bit too deep, that one. Do that when it's safe, when it's safe to do so. But it is quite a good one to do when you can write it down, because it's amazing how we forget these things actually. I look back through things I've written and I go, oh my God, I've completely forgotten that. How could I forget that? But we do. Our lives are so busy, they just kind of float away. And especially things we have a bit of resistance to, they float away even harder, I think. So what would be a nice way to finish today? Let me have a think. Probably a nice bit of grounding to finish with. So go back to that idea of like having your awareness in your body. Feel yourself grounded in your body by sending some roots down into the earth. So feel the roots going down from your base chakra to the top of your legs, and send those roots down through each leg. Down, down, down into the ground. And just see yourself as a tree. Your branches are stretching out to heaven. Your trunk is strong, centered and balanced. And your roots going down deep into the earth, drawing up all the sustenance that you need. So I'm Rachel Goodwin, and I hope that's been helpful for you today, and I'll just bid you farewell until the next time. Blessings and blessed be.
Kaliko puakukui Kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu ke momori nei Piko I kahimanao I kahapili kohaloa ia Ea ke kaula lo piana e kopu kapalili ai Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puakukui Au heia valeana oe e kahaliko puakukui Kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu kumomori nei Piko I kahimanao I kahapili koholua ia Ea ke kaula lo piana e kopu kapalili ai kapuana e kahaliko pua kukui. Au heia valeana hoe e kahaliko pua kukui. Kuhi au kona ia a kahapu ke momori nei. I koi kahi manaho I kahapili ko aloha ia. Ea ke kaula lo pihana he kohopu ka palili ai. Haina mai ka puana e kahaliko pua kukui. He noa no na ka ui.